First place in the AFC East is on the line tonight when the Bills travel to MetLife to take on the Jets. Will a new head coach and a new play caller revive a Jets offense that has been missing all season long? And speaking of missing offenses, what's happened to Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills? Where have they gone the last two games? This line started at 3. It's basically now a pick'em because we got weather as well as coaching issues and quarterback issues to deal with in this game. We're going to talk about all of it, literally all of it. Like there's nothing we're not going to talk about. We're doing it all on the pregame power-up, and it starts now. Well, it's Groundhog Day again, or it's just the Jets in prime time again. Back-to-back primetime games at MetLife. Giants fell to the Bengals last night on Sunday Night Football. The Jets looking to avoid the same fate. It is primetime game 4 of 7 for the Jets this season, but the first without their former head coach, Robert Saleh. And welcome into another edition of the Pregame Power-Up on DraftKings Network, presented by Campbell's Chunky. It is soup that eats like a meal. Glad you're with us. Trey Wingo here with Claudia Bellafato. And Claudia, we have had this line move all over the place in the last few days because there have been a lot of moving parts with the New York Jets. And there remains to be a lot of moving parts with injuries as well on the Bills side, which we'll get to. But you mentioned it. 3 was this line at one point. But 2 weeks ago, it was 1.5, so it's been moving around. I talked to bookmakers earlier today, and they said we brought that line back down despite Bills money coming in. Brought it down from 3 down to 1.5, 1 because they have respect for this Jets offense, Jets defense, I guess just Jets team in general. But when it comes down to it, you combine the wins for both of these squads, which is just 5. None of those wins, Trey, is against a team above 500 right now. Yeah, that's one of the reasons Robert Saleh is no longer the head coach. And another reason is the fact that his team committed 60 more penalties than their opponents during his tenure. And that tenure, of course, as we now know, is done because last week Robert Saleh and the Jets parted ways after their Week 5 loss in Minnesota, or to Minnesota in London. Saleh was 20-36 in New York. That is the 3rd worst record in the league since being hired in 2021. And this is the 3rd time in team history the Jets have made an in-season head coaching change, but the first under owner Woody Johnson in his more than 2 decades of owning the team. So the Jets will be looking for that post-coach firing bump. You know, when you're looking for superlatives and you're going for the post-coach firing bump, that tells you things aren't going well. Like if that's where you're pinning your hopes. Here's a look at some trends for the teams firing a coach mid-season. 17-21 in their next game straight up, but 22-16 against the spread. But here's a caveat that maybe will bring some optimism for the Jets. Teams that fired their head coach within the first 5 games of the season are actually 5-2 straight up in that next game, which is tonight for New York. Only 4 teams in NFL history have ever made the playoffs after replacing their coach midseason. But the 2021 Raiders were the last to do it in the Super Bowl era, and the only one. They fired John Gruden and made the playoffs under Rich Bisaccia. Jets will try to become the 5th after they got over the shock of learning that Saleh was fired last week.
It started as it was like a scene out of John Wick when he becomes excommunicado and everybody at the Continental gets a buzz on their phone. I think I said this on McAfee yesterday, but that's literally how it was. The phone starts buzzing and you're faced with the reality.
My neighbor Mark texted me and told me. That's how I found out, and yeah, I was very surprised.
I think like everybody else, just pretty shocked. Didn't expect it at all. So that was really it. You know, we took time to process what happened between each other.
Obviously, it caught a lot of people off guard yesterday, you know, obviously being 5 games in. But those player-led meetings and leadership meetings were just, you know, to emphasize to the guys, you know, older, younger, you know, veterans, whatever you want to call it, that every goal that we set out to achieve this year is still right in front of us.
Of course, Aaron Rodgers quoted John Wick. Now, defense certainly wasn't the problem under Saleh. He was a defensive-oriented guy. Here's a look at how each side of the ball ranked during his tenure. Defense was solid. Offense was among the worst in the NFL. This season, the Jets were tied for 6th with Kansas City, only allowing 17 points per game. Saleh is the first head coach to be fired midseason with a positive point differential at the time of his firing since Rex Ryan was fired by the Bills in 2016. Okay, for more on the firing and what's ahead for the Jets, let's bring in, from a very windy MetLife Stadium, God bless you, Charlotte Wilder, for being out there. You know her of Meadowlark Media, also worked at Sports Illustrated, and you see her on the Golick and Golick show and her own show, Oddball, during NBA season. Charlotte, you've covered the NFL for a lot of different entities. Just what was your impetus and why they made the move when they made it?
I mean, Trey, first of all, I just want to say that I feel like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz out here, except it's like a trash NATO in this parking lot, which feels sort of appropriate for the Jets. I think they made it out of desperation, Trey, to be honest, because I talked to a fan who I think has become very good at rationalizing Jets' decisions to himself, who said, headline, I feel great about the firing. And I said, oh, why? And he said, well, because Saleh played scared to lose, not to win. And I feel like maybe that's a sentiment around this parking lot, but I've just been really impressed by the dedication of these fans. They keep showing up, and we just hope that maybe they get a little bit of sunshine in their lives.
Well, listen, if the Jets were going to make a business card, it would be the New York Jets, and under it would be made out of desperation. So I guess that makes a lot of sense when we're talking about a team that last appeared in a Super Bowl when the Beatles were still together. You said you talked to one of the Jets fans. Is that the sentiment among most of the fan base, that, look, we had to do something?
I think so, Trey. I think it's this feeling of, you know, you've got Aaron Rodgers, this generational quarterback. You need someone who can do something with him. You also need him to not throw 3 interceptions, but I think that part of that comes with establishing the run and making sure that they have a game plan that makes sense, and I guess they just felt that that was not coming from Saleh with that record, and as a more defensive-minded coach, because he was a defense guy. So, I mean, we'll see. I think that it would be such an amazing surprise if things turned around for this team. I don't know if that's going to come from firing a head coach, but if that's what you have to do something. I just feel bad for the kickers tonight, because I'm truly I'm planted here, because this wind is no joke.
Yeah, we'll get into the weather in just a minute. And to your point, though, it is fascinating, right? You hire Saleh to be a defensive guy. You brought in Nathaniel Hackett because he was Aaron Rodgers' dude, and somehow it's Robert Saleh's fault that Hackett and Rodgers aren't working. Whatever. So then let's go through the timeline. Both owner Woody Johnson and Aaron Rodgers said Aaron had nothing to do with the firing. But then Woody Johnson said he did talk to Aaron Rodgers Monday night before firing Saleh on Tuesday. What do you make of all of this?
Well, it sounds awfully suspicious, doesn't it, Trey?
Yes.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not in the room, and I haven't talked to anyone in the organization, but it feels like here's this quarterback who is a generational talent. You brought him in. They have clearly listened to him the past 2 years, and with all of the stuff about trying to get him back from the Achilles tear last year, and he was like, no, I'm good to go. And everyone's like, are you? I think that the trust between Rodgers and the public maybe is not at the highest it's ever been, would be a diplomatic way to put it. So it seems a little fishy to me, but at the same time, you know, maybe it was just a heads up to Aaron that, hey, we're making this decision.
Yeah, it reminds me of that line from Kevin Costner's character in the movie JFK to Joe Pesci. I simply find your story not believable. And Joe Pesci said, what part? Kevin Costner said all of it. So you mentioned the wind, and we can see your hair whipping wildly around. We're talking about weather that's really going to impact not only kicking, but throwing the ball tonight, right?
Well, that's a great point, Trey. It will impact throwing the ball as well. You know, I put a lot of product in my hair, and it's fighting for its life. It's not doing anything, if that gives you any sense of how windy it is out here. I can't wait to see how this goes tonight, because I could see Josh Allen managing to ball out in this wind. I could see this wind being like the counterintuitive thing that gets the Bills out of their slump right now.
Yeah, listen, we'll see what happens. It's certainly not going to help Aaron Rodgers, whose completion percentage has been, what's the word I'm looking for, not good this season. Charlotte, thank you so much for enduring the elements. We appreciate it. Get inside and get out of the howling winds. We mentioned what's going on here with the Jets, right? It's the 4th time the Jets are playing in prime time. this season. They are 1-2 so far. Some other scheduling quirks for the Jets. They're only the third team in the last 80 years to play their first 3 games in an 11-day span of time. This week, they become the 4th team to travel from a neutral site, London, and then play home on Monday Night Football. Interestingly enough, those teams previously are 0-3 in this situation. And if they're going to beat that streak tonight, it's going to take a solid defensive effort against Josh Allen. Speaking of Josh, Claudia?
Yeah, Trey, and they've kept him in check, Josh Allen. He's going to need the win. He's going to need whatever he can get, like Charlotte said, to show up against his Jets squad. Because look at the last 11 games. 7-4 record, but lowest passer rating since 2021 when Saleh entered this squad. Lowest against any team with a minimum of 3 starts. 11 interceptions, which is the most against any team for him. It's three straight games, too, of not cashing his over. So I think rushing yards, which I'll get to a little bit later on, probably safer than passing yards and passing touchdowns. And then unders, which we'll talk about, lots of under money on this game. Under is 8-3 in the last 11 games. So these trends, not great. Josh Allen looking to turn those around after coming off one of the worst starts of his career in the Bills' Week 5 loss to Houston. He completed just 30% of his passes, which is a career low. That's also the lowest completion percentage by a quarterback with 30+ attempts in the NFL over the last 30 seasons. He has just 1 total touchdown over the last 2 weeks after leading the NFL with 9 through the first 3. So Josh, what's the key to getting back on track against
They're
this
a tough defense
Jets
to play against. Number one, I think establishing the run and making sure that we can try to commit to that, and then again being smart with where the football's going, how quickly we get out of our hands. And I think going back to last year's game here was a good tell of just like, hey, when the opportunities present itself downfield, great, but if not, let's get the ball to our playmakers' hands. And I thought we ran it well last year against them, but it wasn't like this crazy 300-yard run or pass game. It was just kind of a good balanced attack that we're going to have to utilize going forward, and especially against this team because they're playing some really good football right now.
And it's been Buffa high and Buffa low for this squad. The first 3 games versus the last 2. First 3 were against teams currently below 500. Last 2 against teams above 500. 3-0 in the first 3. 0-2 points per game. Opponents' points, all of them trending the wrong way. The Bills averaging over 22 more points per game in games against teams at 500 or below on the season than against teams with a season-winning record, Trey.
Yeah, neither team has been very good against good teams. We'll see how that plays out. For more on this game, let's get to Stormy Bonatoni and the DraftKings trading floor in Las Vegas, and that's, of course, where we find her. Stormy, with all the stuff that's been going on around the Jets, how has this affected how the money has been coming in?
Yeah, you guys already detailed pretty well the line movement in this thing. Public bettors certainly hoping it's Buffa high, just to go off your guys' last graphic for the Bills in this spot, because I'm trying to help you out, because 81% of the handle and 78% of the bets are coming in on Buffalo in this spot, yet we have seen over the last 24 to 48 hours that sharp buyback on the Jets to where we're seeing this line around 1.5. And I think there is something to that interim coach bump in the following game, right? You listed a lot of those stats and trends that pair with it, but also since 2020, in the following game, after a coach has been fired, teams are 9-2 ATS in that next game. So we'll see if that plays out here. Then you pair all of that also with the way that the public cashed in like crazy over the weekend. All these road favorites were winning and covering, overs 10-3 to the over. So a lot of public money cashing in. Sportsbooks hoping maybe that they can get one back here with the Jets and contrarian bettors alike.
All right, Stormy, thanks. We'll check back with you in just a little bit as we continue here on the pregame power-up. Lots more to discuss on what's happening in this AFC East showdown tonight. It has been a tough couple of games for the Jets offense that just can't seem to get their skill players going. How will Aaron Rodgers and his new play caller, Todd Downing, change that? We'll bring in a guy who played for him as we continue on the pregame power-up. Pregame Power-Up is presented by Campbell's Chunky, soup that eats like a meal. We continue in the pregame power-up presented by Campbell's Chunky, soup that eats like a meal. And, well, they've been trying to help Garrett Wilson eat, but it hasn't been working. Last week, he was targeted 22 times. 22! He had 13 catches on those 22, but only for 101 yards. Wilson's 22 targets in Week 5 were the most by any receiver in a game in Rodgers' career and the most targets in a game by any player since Antonio Brown had a bunch in Week 9 of 2015. But here's where it gets ugly. 54 of Rodgers' attempts this season have been intended for Garrett Wilson. That's the most between a quarterback and a receiver in the NFL. But Rodgers has a 70.3 passer rating target Wilson. That's the 6th worst in the league. And their 5.3 yards per attempt is 4th worst among qualified duos. Remember that old Office meme, the TV show The Office, when they say it's the same picture? Well, take a look at the Jets offense with Aaron Rodgers and the Jets offense with Zach Wilson. Nothing has changed. The numbers, the record, the completion percentage, the yards per attempt, and most glaringly, the team points through 5 games. 63 under Zach and 63 under Aaron Rodgers. You can complain all you want about Robert Saleh and the penalties and playing scared, but the offense simply has not produced in any way, shape, or form. That's why you had to also change the play caller. Nathaniel Hackett no longer calling plays. Quarterback coach Todd Downing is. As promised, back to Stormy Bonatoni on the trading floor in DraftKings book in Vegas. So what are we looking at when we talk about futures bets for the Jets with those numbers that we just talked about?
I mean, boy, that was pretty telling, right? The
Brutal.
more things change, the more they stay the same. And when it comes to the futures market with the Jets, the changes have been a whole lot of nada because of what we've seen the last 2 weeks with the Jets offensively. It was funny. I saw this article that was like, the Jets futures odds plummet after Robert Saleh is fired. And it's like, no, they actually lengthened as significantly as they did over the course of the last 2 weeks when you face a Broncos team that scores only 10 points against you and you can't win, and then your Hall of Fame quarterback throws 3 interceptions and can't get you a win in London as well. So that's why the odds had lengthened out to 30-1. And then after Robert Saleh was fired for those Super Bowl odds, they stayed there at 30-1. It's the same thing for the division in the AFC East. The Bills remain the favorite at an odds-on -260 number, but the Jets are still the second shortest shot with Miami and New England cut and fallen apart. The one area where we did see some money invested in the Jets since the firing, however, it was actually their win total in season over. People like taking that over 8.5 all of a sudden on New York.
It is a lot more appetizing coming down from where it opened at 10.5. Of course, Stormy. Let's talk about the Bills in this spot, dealing with a lot of injuries from the start of the season on the defensive side. But of course, Khalil Shakir not in that last game. We saw Josh Allen struggle, just 9 completions. Looks like James Cook is good to go, which is a huge part of their run game. What are you seeing in terms of action, though, based off of these injuries?
Claudia, it's interesting. People did not care whatsoever that James Cook was questionable coming into this game because he is the most bet first touchdown scorer by far at 6-1, the second most bet anytime touchdown scorer at +115. And when you look at his rushing yards prop as well, we saw 80% of the bettors that were coming in that market taking his over. He has scored 5 touchdowns this season, including 2 first touchdowns, both of which coming on their opening drives in that spot. Also, in terms of the pass catchers maybe not being as healthy or available for the Buffalo Bills, we see Josh Allen's passing yards prop come down about 8 yards. And the only real pass catcher getting some intrigue in the betting market is Dalton Kincaid. People love him over 3.5 receptions and over 38.5 receiving yards coming into today.
Stormy, any of the prop bets that really pop off as we get set for this game tonight?
Well, I hate this and I love this. My favorite prop bet coming in was Breece Hall over 3.5 receptions. You just think about how Aaron Rodgers likes to get the ball out quickly behind this offensive line. The Bills defensively haven't done great against pass-catching running backs. Felt like everything was going to come together for this. But now it's the most bet prop in the entire country on DraftKings, so I don't like it as much. It got bet up from -120 to -150. A couple other ones that were getting interest. You mentioned Garrett Wilson and all of his targets. Over 5.5 receptions was a highly bet option for him, as well as just kind of the buy low on Josh Allen with that number getting put down as much as it was in the passing yards. People liking the over 199.5 passing yards for him now as well.
Stormy, I want to ask you about this total. Earlier, I said it got bet down because it opened 44.5 down to 40.5. Now, of course, the public sees this low number. They're jumping all over it. The last 20 Monday Night Football games, though, with a home dog, the under is 17-2-1. We talked about Allen's struggles against this Jets defense. Talk to me about this total.
Well, and it's another one of those spots, Claudia, where we see public bettors coming in on the over, yet the line moves 3.5 points in this spot. And you look at the Jets, who have had 4 straight games now go under the posted total. Buffalo on the road has seen all 3 of their road contests go under. And then we saw Charlotte earlier standing outside the MetLife Stadium with the wind going crazy. That's surely going to have an impact on today as well. So another one of those elements where the public like one side, the sharp likes the other. And under does seem like a play that I like today as well, but at 41.5, I don't love it as much. But Claudia, you know I love an SGT. We're going same game teaser today. If we can get the Jets up to 7 and the under 47.5, I think that's a good play.
My girl.
Yeah, listen, if you have a quarterback that's struggling to complete passes and it's blowing like it is, the under seems like a pretty safe space to be. Stormy, as always, we appreciate it. Thanks very much. And you heard Stormy allude to Breece Hall. Well, I'd like to reintroduce Breece Hall into the Jets offense, right? Jeff Ulbrich, the interim head coach, wants to activate the running game. Well, you should, because there are 32 teams in the league, and the Jets' running attack is, wait for it, 32nd. It's been a tale of 2 seasons for Breece Hall specifically. Hall had just 19 carries for 27 rushes and 0 rushing TDs in weeks 4 through 5, over 170 yards and 2 touchdowns in the first 2 weeks. Entering week 6, the Jets are averaging 80.4 rushing yards per game. Again, last in the NFL, and 3.6 yards per carry. That is 3rd worst in the NFL, Claudia, in 2024.
Yeah, and you have Allen, too, out of the backfield, so sort of could be a 2-headed monster if they use them to their advantage. Bills on the other side, though, looking to avoid a 3-game losing streak for the first time since 2018. And Monday night, Josh Allen, in quotations, could be the cure, Trey. Allen has 22 passing touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and a 108.9 passer rating in his career on Monday nights, the 4th best passer rating of any player on Monday night since Allen entered the NFL in 2018. And when you look at the betting splits, bettors are confident in Josh and company on this Monday night. Bettors also liking the under. For more on the action, DraftKings is taking tonight. Here's our anonymous sportsbook informant, only known as Captain Book.
It's Monday, and we've got an AFC East title bout on deck at East Rutherford as the Bills and Jets battle for New York. Coach Sean's squad sat down 3 featherweights to start the 2024 campaign, but since stepping up in class, they failed to answer the bell. Losing back-to-back, as all-or-nothing Allen accounted for just 1 score in those setbacks. Despite that slide, the Bandies are still stacking up on the Bills. From 1.5 to 3 and back. Buffalo bettors are banking on Juicy James Cook to get fed the red-hot potato early and often at MetLife. But the book believes the news off Broadway just can't be ignored. Gang Green's Woody Johnson was up all night after Robert Saleh's poor performance across the pond. When the Jets touched down in Jersey last week, New York's owner pushed his fish and chips all in. So while the public cheers for a Week 6 sweep, the captain's counting on Bad News Breece to hit that action with a hall pass. Bye-bye, Bobby Devine. It's Aaron's Big Apple now.
Well, Captain Book, here comes a little bit more action because we're about to build a same-game parlay, and my favorite feature at the DraftKings Sportsbook is that you can do just that and click on the dynamic odds, which is going to show you with each leg that you add what the payout's going to be. So up first, we're going to go with a little touchdown for my guy Allen Lazard, plus 275. He has more touchdowns than the rest of the receivers combined, and double Breece Hall, who is the favorite on this board. And then we're going to go to passing props, and here I'm looking at Aaron Rodgers, passing yards, 175, not going too crazy. That payout, though, getting bigger at plus 340. And then rushing props, we're going to go all the way to Josh Allen because we know with this wind, with questions, Khalil Shakir, by the way, good to go. But when in doubt, he's going to run it out. Let's go 50 plus for a nice little payout at plus 675. $100 wins you $675. You know, you could do 10 to Trey. Either way, it's a nice payout if all 3 legs cash. I'm liking that one. Josh Allen rushing yards specifically.
Well, I love the Josh Allen rushing yard specifically tonight because they need to get him going in some way just to get him a little confidence, not only from the last 2 games that he's played. Again, 16 of 29 for under 200 yards against the Ravens, 9 of 30 for a scant, very small amount. And most of that was on 1 pass play to Keon Coleman. Something that will get him going and maybe giving him a little confidence against the Jets team that he has struggled against. And the Jets, well, they are the embodiment of struggling, and that's why they fired Robert Saleh. So for more on the changes tonight for the Jets, let's bring in our guy, Marshall Newhouse, of course, longtime offensive lineman. Marshall, you played a long time in this league. You played with Aaron Rodgers. We see that picture. And, oh, look, Jeff Saturday looking solid behind you as well there. It looks like a lot of this offensive struggle has been because Aaron Rodgers and his wide receivers have not been on the same page. How do you fix that now by inserting a new play caller?
Listen, they're not going to do too much to change things, but they have to fix something and fix it quick. I think Coach Ulbrich, interim head coach, Coach Ulbrich has already talked about they want to run heavier. That'll be some things. People have talked about, pre-snap motion, thing that Aaron Rodgers maybe doesn't prefer, but what it does is it helps the rest of the team on offense uncover what the defense is doing. So it shows zone or man. It shows leverage from one side to the next. And so his receivers, and especially his offensive line, get a better read on everything that's going on, and it lets the offense be a little more fluid. So I think they will lean on the run. Breece Hall is going to get a lot of touches tonight, but this is going to lead right into play action and a team that you hope is playing really, really hard for their new coach. You think that it will, boost this team, but Aaron Rodgers is what makes everything go. And he's been off at times, but he can still do all the things necessary. He is not his former self whatsoever, but there's still enough there. They just haven't never been on the same page this entire season.
Marshall, you mentioned Ulbrich wanting to focus on the rushing attack. Of course, we think Breece Hall, he's the first name that comes to mind, but Braylon Allen has been using his carries wisely. 44 less carries, 141 less snaps, but just 54 less yards, just a touchdown less. Do you think we might see a little bit more of a running back by committee situation with those two?
I definitely do, and that definitely bears mentioning. They're getting not great run blocking out of their tight end position. That's something that they're struggling with, and so that makes some of the personnel packages not as important. And when you're in 11 and 12, which means 1 tight end or 2 tight ends, these guys aren't being able to pick up defensive ends, which is already a tall task. But that makes the running back getting to his lane, and they call it the edge of the ghost tight end or the line of scrimmage to make his cut. That makes that getting there even harder. And so a guy like Braylon Allen, who's a bigger body, I think breaks more tackles, makes a lot more sense, especially as a 1-2 combo.
Yeah, especially when you're playing a Bills defense that has some injuries and have been 26th against the run. But let's go back to actually what can happen, because Todd Downing is a new play caller. But you know this, Marshall, as well as anybody. You're not going to throw out the playbook and start all over. You're still working from the same recipe. It's just like adding a pinch of salt here and a dash of Worcestershire sauce or something. What can he really do to sort of change up what is going to be their offense?
Listen, I think ultimately this is time of desperation. I don't know if enough people are talking about it in that way, because if you're the New York Jets, who you just fired Robert Saleh, if you go out and lay an egg tonight against the Bills, who have plenty of injury issues, and this guy Aaron, who you leveraged your entire franchise for, if you don't get this win, you can start thinking about the season being a failure and not even worth playing out to a certain degree. I mean, this is like do or die for them. I think they will respond with energy, but like a guy like Todd Downing, I think understands that. He's going to allow Aaron Rodgers to use his mind and his arm and things that he does best. They're going to force feed Garrett Wilson as well. If I'm going down using my big guns. And so I think you might see a little bit of Mike Williams if he's healthy enough to go, at least as a distraction. But they've got to do everything just to get a win in the win column tonight. Throw everything at them, see what sticks.
And Marshall, it's a big game for both teams, of course, specifically in this division. When it comes to the Bills, you and I talked about this, losing Stephon Diggs. At first, it looked like they might be okay the first few weeks, but clearly that's not the case. Khalil Shakir was hurt last week, and that really hurt them. They're having an issue when they're trailing, down 21-3 to the Ravens, 23 to the Texans. How much confidence do you have in this team and this personnel to fix this issue of not being able to come back?
Well, it's one thing to have personnel. It's another thing that they can't see the field or it's too sporadic. And ultimately, Josh Allen is carrying the Bills offense like a backpack, and it's just weighing him down. He can't do it every single week. 3 out of 5 games, he hasn't reached 200 passing yards. He's trying everything he can. I think Joe Brady is doing the best he can. They're throwing what they can at it, but if you don't have your weapons, there's just limited things you can do. I think there will be plays to be had tonight from Josh Allen, but they've got to execute, and they kind of resort a little too much to backyard ball, even though that's what he's good at. You've got to have some structure in your offense, and they've lost a little bit of that structure.
Marshall, thanks. We'll check back with you a little bit later on in the show.
We appreciate you, Marshall. Coming up, there's been a lot of negative Jets chat on this show. Let's change it up. Focus on the positive. Stay tuned, Jets fans. We're giving you a little bit of hope. That's next.
Pregame Power Up is presented by Campbell's Chunky, soup that eats like a meal. We are glad you are watching the Pregame Power Up across this great nation of ours. Wherever you are, know that we're glad you're tuned in. Welcome back to it, presented by Campbell's Chunky, soup that eats like a meal. MetLife has been a house of horrors for the home team in primetime. The Jets and Giants are now a combined 4-30 straight up playing at night in primetime since 2019. But by all means, let's keep putting them on. Let's keep throwing these guys out there because it's really helping them. Here's how it looks for New York in primetime this season. 1-2 overall record, 2 unders, only covering the spread once in their blowout win against the Patriots. But maybe this is the game that turns it around. Aaron Rodgers has played a total of 20 times on Monday Night Football. He's 13-7 straight up, 11-9 against the spread. But of course, most of that was against teams when he was with the Green Bay Packers. Is there more positivity we can find from the Jets? If there is, we know the guys that can find it. Stugotz and Billy Gill from the God Bless Football Guys.
Thanks, Trey and Claudia. Stugotz?
Yes?
Today's the day.
It is.
Your Jets.
Yeah, what about them?
They're playing for first place,
I
but
know.
a lot of the story around this team has been very negative. So I feel like it's our job here today to try to help the viewers, the audience, find the positive in this Jets team. Give them something to be excited about because it feels all doom and gloom around this team right now.
Right.
When, again, today they could be in first place after the game is done.
It's a 3-3 first place, but it's a first place that I'll take. There are not many games. If you want a positive, Billy, I can't recall the last time, and it was probably recently, where the Jets had a game in which they were playing for first place this late in the season. So there's week one. So there is the positive, right? Outside of week one. So there is the positive. We are playing in a game against the Bills. We are playing for first place, and Aaron Rodgers no longer has to look to the sidelines and look at someone who clearly made him angry. So hopefully that is a positive for the Jets. Hopefully Aaron Rodgers will find a spark tonight. Hopefully the team will find a spark with their new head coach and the realignment of the coaching staff. And it's the Buffalo Bills, man. I'm excited. So if there's a positive, we have a game for first place. I mean, I can't say that. I haven't been able to say that too often in my lifetime. So
when you say hopefully they'll do all these things, do you believe that they will?
No.
Oh,
Yeah,
well,
I don't.
now we're back to negative town.
I don't want to be doom and gloom, but we are a tortured fan base. And so anytime we come in with any sort of expectations, they get squashed. And so I learned my lesson from you last year because you told me don't get too excited for the Jets season this year. And I was as excited for the first game of the year as I've ever been before a Jet game. And what happened 4 plays in? Tore his Achilles. Aaron Rodgers did. So this year I'm taking a different approach. I'm not excited. I'm expecting the worst.
Well, no, come on, don't do that.
What do you mean?
Don't go into the game expecting the worst.
Well, when you expect the worst, you somehow eclipse whatever bar it is that you set.
Yes.
You think the Jets are going to win, don't you? Don't say it. 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 You think the Jets are going to win. I know you. I feel it from you.
I'm not going to
Don't say it.
I'm not going to say I think that they're going to win. But, hey, look, Aaron Rodgers and Robert Saleh did not get along. You've now gotten Robert Saleh out of the picture. So this should now free up. I think we can all agree, right? Aaron's just a guy that wants to be happy, right? And Robert Saleh, for whatever reason, was keeping him from being happy. Even when they were succeeding, you saw them kind of shoving each other on the sideline.
Yeah. What'd you make of Diana Rossini's reports of Saleh going after offensive coordinators during the offseason? Upsetting Nathaniel Hackett.
Yeah.
There's the positive. Nathaniel Hackett is no longer calling plays for the New York Jets, I think.
Yeah.
I think.
But Nate was
officially
right.
Nate was Aaron's guy, so I don't know how that's gonna. You think? Do we think as a group here? And Trey, Claudia, I'm interested in your answer as well. Do we feel like Aaron is actually going to be sticking to the game plan today, or do we think that he's just kind of be going rogue because he doesn't like that his friend is no longer the play caller?
I think he's going to go rogue.
I'm kind of with you. I feel like, oh, what? I lost the play.
This is what happened when Hackett doesn't call the plays, right?
I will say this. No matter what it is he ends up doing, I can tell you the outcome is probably going to be it wasn't his fault. So that is the one constant here.
The outcome is likely going to be the Jets are going to be in second place tomorrow.
But, silver lining.
Yeah.
Jets could be in first place tomorrow.
They could. And they could not.
Yeah. Back to you, Trey.
You guys covered it all. Stu Gatz once told me when I asked him about a Jets pick, he said, it's the wrong pick because the Jets made it. That's what it's like to be a Jets fan. And Stu Gatz is going George from Seinfeld. My name is George. I'm unemployed and I live home with my parents. And that's sort of the attitude he's taking here. Oh my gosh, some more positivity on the Jets and the defensive side of the ball is always a good place to look. Will McDonald is tied for third in the league in sacks entering tonight's game. Aiden Hutchinson at the top of that list, but boy, you saw that injury he suffered with a leg whip yesterday. It's likely going to be a season-ending injury in that blowout win over the Dallas Cowboys. The Lions actually took him apart 47-9, and it looks like there's no official timetable for his return, Claudia.
Yeah, and speaking of the Lions, Aiden Hutchinson in that win, right? We always talk about the wins coming at a cost. Lions beat up on the Cowboys, but they lost their best defensive player in the process. You see him leading with 7.5 sacks this season. Well, he's out, broken tibia and fibula in the third quarter he had of that Lions 47-9 blow-up victory. No official timeline for a return. With that Lions win, though, the NFC North, how about this? The first division since 2002, Trey, with every team to have at least 4 wins through week 7. Vikings and Lions are both plus 140 to win it. You got the Packers and the Bears. Caleb Williams looking great. They're at 11 to 1. So all of a sudden, this is a very interesting division.
It is, and I find it fascinating. There's a couple of things. First of all, the Vikings continue to surprise me. I did not see this coming in any way, shape, or form. But I got to tell you, I love what I'm seeing out of Detroit. And the locker room after the game where Dan Campbell gave the game ball to Jared Goff. I don't know if you saw this. He said, I did this. I looked at the stats because the week before their bye, Goff was 18 of 18 and he didn't give him a game ball. He's like, I'm an idiot. I gave the game ball to somebody else. So he gave it to Goff. And as Dan Campbell's going to let somebody else break down the team, Jared Goff steps up and says, hold on, coach. You are our rock. We played here in Dallas where you used to play. This MFing ball is for you. That's the kind of thing. Like, to me, right now, through 5 games, we'll get into this with Marshall in a second, there are only 3 teams that I think have a clear identity of who they are.
Yeah.
The Lions know who they are. They feed off Dan Campbell. The Chiefs know who they are because they just find ways to win. And the Ravens run the ball at an alarming rate, the likes of which we've never seen in the history of the NFL. 6 straight games to start the season, outrushing their opponents by 100 yards in each of those games. That's happened, never before in NFL history. Those 3 teams really know who they are, and I love what I'm seeing in Detroit.
I completely agree with the identity part, and you know where that starts. It starts at the top. When you just mentioned what Goff said, that sounds like it's coming from Dan Campbell's mouth. So, of course, losing Hutch is going to be huge, but I think in this division, the Vikings, I've been proud of them. I've been happy for them, but the best roster goes to the Lions, even with Hutch out of there. So it's a tough loss for them, but, I mean, second right now, or I guess tied with the Vikings at plus 140, that's still technically good value.
Yeah, I would agree. So let's focus in more on that game between the Lions and the Cowboys, and let's bring in former TCU offensive lineman and longtime player in the NFL, Marshall Newhouse. Marshall, the Cowboys at home, they had everything going their way last season. Best winning percentage at home by terms of points, highest turnover differential at home, set the second longest franchise record for home wins last season. 0-3 this year, giving up almost 40 points a game. What the hell is going on out there, as Vince Lombardi once said?
Listen, they have a home field advantage sometimes, but no team is scared to go into Dallas. And I can just say that they're flat out getting bullied. Last week was not an aberration. It was an exceptional example of it, but it's been happening from everyone. And after you pay your quarterback and your star receiver, you start to realize, hey, our defense can't stop anyone. So unless they can play 7-on-7, we're not going to be able to keep up and win many games. And then ultimately, Dallas is concerned as an organization about their enterprise value. I'm using my business school lingo. Ultimately, they want to know what the valuation of the organization is. They're less concerned about winning games, because if they were concerned about winning games, they would have made some moves in the offseason to bolster this defense that is just getting pushed around by everyone. When the Lions decide to run a hook and ladder with Penei Sewell, they line their big tight end up at wide receiver and run a fake fade route. They're running flea flickers on you at your home. No, they don't respect you. No one respects you in that building, which was a problem, about the way it was constructed. That's a whole nother thing. But as far as team construction, they're a mess. It's Jerry Jones's fault, but it's also it's his baby, and he's not going to give up with it. He's not going to change. We should stop dreaming and hoping for him to change.
Marshall, you are so right about that, because that's one, the Lions remembering what happened at the end of the season last year with Taylor Decker and Dan Skipper not reporting. They had Skipper report eligible at the first play of the game and also at the end of the half. But you're right. What we're seeing from the Cowboys, the problems for the Cowboys in season are directly attributed to their inaction in the offseason.
Absolutely. I mean, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, it's just a repeating of what I'm saying, but it bears repeating. It's just they stood pat, and they told us, they lied to us, and they lied to themselves that they had enough to make a run.
Yes,
and we all said,
preach!
Ha! But well, I mean, you can lie to yourself all day, but you can't lie to people who watch and know what's going on.
Correct.
Maybe they had something in their bag that we didn't know about, but it turns out, they didn't. Michael Parsons can't do everything by himself. He is, in fact, not Superman. So, this is reaping what they sow.
Yeah, and apparently Jerry Jones didn't have money for Derrick Henry. I'd love to rag on this Cowboys team all night long. However, we do have a little bit of breaking news. Adam Schefter tweeting that James Cook will be inactive for the Bills tonight. We talked about these injuries that were coming in and out. Khalil Shakir, they didn't have in the last game. It looks like he's good, but no James Cook. How does that change things for the Bills tonight, Marshall?
Yeah, I mean, this is a team who likes to stay balanced. They have a very varied run game with Joe Brady calling plays, but This is ultimately a Josh Allen thing. There's more burden on his back. I talked about the backpack. They just added another brick to it tonight. And so, look for them to probably throw a little more, use his legs a little more. He's coming off a head injury, let's not forget, and a banged up shoulder, banged up hand. So, let's hope he makes it. He's tough. He's built for this. But that's one less weapon that they need really to contend against what is a pretty still stout Jets defense.
Let's move on to another team that seems to be creating problems by themselves, for themselves, and that would be the Cleveland Browns. Head coach Kevin Stefanski says that they are sticking with Deshaun Watson because he gives them the best chance to win. Let's translate that into real language. We're sticking with Deshaun Watson because he's making $45 million in guaranteed money this year and the next two, and there's not a damn thing we can do about it, so we might as well see if he can play his way out of it. That's the honest assessment here, right?
Yeah, I mean, $45 million this year, the next year, the year after that, $70+ million cap hit.
Brutal.
This is a hostage with Stockholm syndrome, with their eyes dilated, staring at a camera, just saying what needs to be said because they believe it. They have no other choice. They're just going to play and hope things turn around. But that is genuinely feels like an untradeable, ejectable contract. And so they're doing what they have to do, but it's just a terrible decision making, and I think the entire staff's going to end up costing their jobs for this, which is unfortunate because there's a lot of guys I think who are worthy in this league, but they can't do anything. And this is also a quarterback. Let's talk about on the field who just looks rattled. He looks shell shocked game after game after game, and there's just I can't imagine going through the week. Hard practice Wednesday, hard practice Thursday, and you don't really feel like you have a chance. Not because the guy wasn't talented enough or isn't talented enough. There's not enough talent around the team because we don't even know if he, can play the position anymore. That's got to be a really stark place to be.
Yeah, brutal over there in Cleveland, and possibly for Stefanski, maybe on the hot seat. Lots of coaches, though, he'll be joining there. How about the Jags losing to the Bears in London, so starting 1-5. And then Doug Peterson says, yeah, we need a culture change. You have Nick Sirianni out here booing at Eagles fans. There's a lot of coaches that don't seem to be in a good mindset right now. Just quick take, who's next to be really on this hot seat when it comes to NFL coaches?
Listen, Nick Sirianni, you might not like his tactics. It seems juvenile. It seems like beside the point, but they win enough. They're competitive. He'll keep getting chances. But, Doug Peterson has now, it feels, misused Trevor Lawrence, not really ushered in his growth as people expected. That's on you. And if you talk about a culture change, you set the culture. You want the players to eventually take over and be a player-led team, but you set the culture from day one, and it feels like they are lacking in that. Well, the 1-5 reflects that. The way they handle game decisions reflects that. Traveling and getting beat by Caleb Williams is on the ascent reflects that. So, attitude reflects leadership.
Always good to talk football with the Camp Bowie Colossus, Marshall Newhouse. Hey, he likes that one. There you go. All right, Marshall, thanks. When we come back, we're wrapping up the show. Which bettor's like someone to find the end zone? It won't be him because he's not playing. And let's see who's our next-gen Cats radar tonight. The Cats is, the Cats picked
No
Brees
cat.
Hall.
Oh,
Well, we'll do it
next
later.
time.
Or we just told you. We'll figure it out. Pregame Power Up is presented by Campbell's Chunky, soup that eats like a meal.
Pregame Power Up presented by Campbell's Chunky Soup that eats like a meal. Here's a look at the most bet touchdown scores for tonight's game. If you didn't hear, Schefter tweeting out James Cook officially out. Now, he was second on this board right behind Breece Hall. With him out, you're getting some better odds on Josh Allen at plus 165. Allen Lazard, who I mentioned earlier, now plus 260. Breece Hall, though, does remain the favorite. For more on how people are betting tonight, here's DKN social correspondent Megan Townsley.
Divisional matchups on primetime are way more fun when you're in on the action. So I wanted to show y'all some of my favorite picks in the DraftKings Sportsbook betting groups for Bills Jets tonight. And I've got a new one for you. So we're going to go to the Gold Boys betting group where Ryan Props, he's taking Breece Hall to hit 70 plus rushing yards, and track record does not show that so far this season, but we know he's got that talent in him. So I'm liking this bet. Now let's take it to the DK Network betting group where Ryan Wall, he crafted up his own same game parlay for tonight. He's taking Bills money line, over 34.5 total alternate, and a Dalton Kincaid anytime touchdown. We've got 30 other people tailing this bet and riding with Bills Mafia. And if you want to join them or, say you don't like this bet, go ahead and open up the DraftKings Sportsbook, click on the social tab at the top, and then you'll find the betting groups. With Josh Allen versus Aaron Rodgers, anything could happen tonight. So if you don't know what to bet on or you just want some plain advice, head to dknetwork.com to get cutting-edge analysis from our talent and our writers. And then go check out these betting groups because there is a lot of good stuff going on.
All right, Megan, thanks very much. So again, a lot of moving parts here, just so people understand as we get closer and closer to kickoff in this AFC East showdown between the Bills and the Jets. Somebody's going to be in first place when this game is over. But James Cook is out and Khalil Shakur is in for Buffalo.
Yep, Shakir is in. Ray Davis, Bills backup running back, is now seeing apparently a ton of money. And we talked about it. Marshall mentioned, I think the key is just going to be balance for this team. Shakir healthy. Josh Allen, don't feel like you have to carry the ball. Don't force that, especially if he's not 100% healthy. But Ray Davis right now, first touchdown down, anytime touchdown down to plus 180, which is crazy. So I don't know. I get maybe a Ray Davis night. I don't know if I'd go after Ray Davis. I'd probably lean more Shakir. Again, I like those rushing yards for Josh Allen. I'm feeling a Jets win, though, now. I think with James Cook out, that might handicap them.
It is huge. But the thing that I'm concerned about, and we had this with Charlotte off the top of the show, it is windy. Like MetLife on a good day is a wind tunnel. The old Meadowlands is the same thing. And we're talking about an offense that has really struggled with Aaron Rodgers. Again, for people that don't understand, Aaron Rodgers this season is 27th in the NFL out of 40 qualified quarterbacks. You're saying, well, there's only 32 teams. How can there be 40 qualified quarterbacks? More than one quarterback has played for a couple of teams. Okay? That's why you factor that into the equation. He is 27th. Caleb Williams and Bo Nix are completing more passes this season than Aaron Rodgers. So you're going to have to rely on the running game if you're the Jets. However, that offensive line has been a problem. They thought it was bad last year, and that's one of the reasons Aaron Rodgers tore his Achilles. It hasn't gotten much better despite all these moving parts up front for the New York Jets.
And that is a good point, actually. As I say, maybe I like the Jets. I think I changed my mind on that because I think the one thing that handicaps Aaron Rodgers is the fact that he's old and he's coming off an Achilles and he can't really run. So when it comes down to it, if it's windy, it's crazy. The Bills are able to cover Garrett Wilson, which they do have some talented corners in the secondary. And you have Josh Allen who can run the ball, maybe lean on Ray Davis a little bit. Then, I think with this weather and the run game being favored here, Bills might have it.
The under is very much in play in tonight's game because the Jets couldn't score anyway, and now you factor in the wind and everything else going on. I will say this, though. I do think they're going to try and get Josh Allen going against this Jets defense. They've got to give him something to give him some positive momentum. They've lost the last two times they played at MetLife, and they haven't lost 3 in a row since 2018. And Josh is on a streak of 7 straight games without an interception, including playoffs. That's the longest streak of his career. And this wind, let's try and make sure we don't do too much of that. Crazy Josh Allen may be on display tonight for the Buffalo Bills. Thanks for watching the Pregame Power Up. For Claudia, for Charlotte, for Stormy, for Megan, and for the Camp Bowie Colossus, Marshall Newhouse. I'm Trey Wingo. We'll see you Thursday night. Enjoy the game.